Thank you, everybody, for joining today. I am Rhonda Velabeth, the coordinator for Connecting Young Nebraskans. Thank you for joining us today for our second session of Entrepreneurship. Is it for you? I will tell you, I have said the word entrepreneurship more in the past month than I think I have in my entire life, and it is a mouthful. Today's session is starting from the ground up, and together with NBDC, Nebraska Business Development Center, we are bringing you this 4-part series. Our first session 2 weeks ago is posted on our YouTube channel, so you're welcome to go take a look at that if you were unable to join us a couple weeks ago. Today is session 2, and then we have 2 more coming up. They are equally 2 weeks apart. So in 2 weeks will be our third session, and then 2 weeks after that will be our fourth and final session of this series. At this time, I will go ahead and turn it over to Sarah Bennett with NBDC.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us, and thanks to Rhonda and the committee that oversees events for CYN. When I brought this idea to them, and they said, "Sure, we think it's great, and we'd love for you to host this." So I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to hear about what it means to start a business, but also hear about the story of Scratchtown Brewing Company and from Caleb, who is a very dynamic speaker and extremely passionate about what he does. And so I think you'll really enjoy what he has to share. So what the format kind of looks like is I'll kind of give you the background on some of this, and then we'll do kind of an overview, general startup stuff. You don't want to listen to me talk the whole time. So I'm just going to give you a nice little preview and tell you to call me when you want to start one. And then we will dive into learning from Caleb and then have some moderated questions. But at any point, feel free to drop things in the chat with questions for Caleb or for I, and we'll be happy to address those. It's not a formal presentation by any means. We've got a format we're following, but I want it to be a dynamic conversation for sure. So I'm just curious by like the reactions. If you can pull up the reactions, how many were in our first session? So I think 3 is what I had. Good. So we'll have some new folks. So for a couple of you, it may be kind of a little repeat on things, but wanted to get a feel for who was able to join us last time. And again, like Rhonda said, all the sessions are going to be recorded and available to view after the fact. So we'll get started. So why are we here? So right now, I think it's a pivotal time to think about what's next. Personally, professionally, you've likely been in your roles for a while now. You might be saying, okay, I've done this job or this career or what have you for a while. And you said, okay, what do I want to do next? And what's my next leap or next step? And this might be on your journey, right? Maybe you are looking at an opportunity to start a business or purchase one in your community. And what does that look like as you're looking ahead? Maybe it's the next couple years, 5 years, or even 10 years out. Hopefully, I can work with you before that point, but it could be a longer range thing you want to think about. So why entrepreneurship? So it's my world for sure, okay. But I think it's important for CYN members, right? Because it's the ideal age to think about, I've established myself. I know a few things now, and I've got some duration left in my career to figure something out. We're professionals, right? And we're dedicated folks who wouldn't be engaged in connecting young Nebraskans if we weren't interested in furthering ourselves, both personally or professionally. Visionaries. I've met a lot of really dynamic people through connecting young Nebraskans, and they're always looking to create really positive, great change. Goal-oriented, right? You can't be visionary without having goals as well. Curious, right? What's next? And maybe you're here just because you're like, you know what? I just want to learn about Scratchtown. I like beer. Me too. My husband and I just went there the weekend before last for our anniversary. So I had an incentive to ask Caleb because I like their brewery. So CYN members, they're difference makers, right? And you're looking at making a change. And community minded, success driven, all of these things that I think are appropriate to have these conversations about what it means to own a business, hearing from people in your communities, but also looking at that opportunity for yourself. So who am I? I am Sarah Bennett with Nebraska Business Development Center. So I'm from the central Nebraska area, and I've been a part of the Grand Island Young Professionals Group for 10 years, and then engaged with CYN for about 8. And in my role with Nebraska Business Development Center for 10. So I'm always looking for ways to change or do things different. So staying within my role, but always adding to the way that we're working with businesses and helping them across the state of Nebraska. And I'm 32 now, and I'm also asking myself, what's next? What do I want to tackle, and what do I want to take on that's meaningful to me? So a little bit about the world of Nebraska Business Development Center. So an umbrella organization that's got 5 key programs underneath of it. So we are statewide, and by and large, we're free because we're taxpayer funded, which means if you work with our team, it doesn't cost you anything. That's the beauty of our world. So under the Small Business Development Center, that's where we're working with folks to start businesses, transition businesses. So business plans, if you're familiar with those, financial projections, general startup assistance, all of that. Under our Procurement Technical Assistance Center, those folks help with government contracting. So if you want to buy or if you want to sell your goods or services to the government, particularly the federal government, there's a process to do that, and a bidding process. And the fine folks that are part of that team really help you figure and navigate all of that. You would be surprised the things that the federal government needs. There's a goat farmer who does prescriptive grazing of her goats and some field lands nearby their property. Government contracting. Who would have thought? Under our innovation program that's focused on looking at federal research and development dollars for startup companies. Maybe they've got an innovation and it's more of a high risk venture. And this is a zero equity investment. So the Small Business Administration provides these, they facilitate some of the programming that we have, but it's through various federal agencies that you can apply for funding to bring an idea to ultimately to market and commercialization. Under the NU Connections program, that opportunity is to connect businesses and industry with the vast resources of the University of Nebraska system. So maybe you want to partner with a researcher that's at UNL in some of the ag sciences because you're looking at an innovation. Maybe you are partnering with somebody at UNK within the Center for Entrepreneurship. So there's a lot of different opportunities to access resources underneath the University of Nebraska, and our team helps to do that. And then SourceLink Nebraska, we're just now standing that up. I think I saw Jamie on the call today. She's on our team for SourceLink Nebraska. So there are, I think, they've discovered over 800 different resources to work with businesses and to help them within the state of Nebraska. And the intent with SourceLink is to better connect those resources to the people that need them. And they're developing a resource navigator with all of that. And so it's a great way to help you figure out what is out there and what's the right fit for you to help on your venture. So specifically wanted to touch a little bit on the supporting innovation. So figuring out what's that pathway to commercial success. Maybe you're pursuing federal research and development money through the Small Business Innovation Research Program. The state has academic research and development dollars, as well as a prototyping grant. So a lot of great ways to get things off of the ground. Prototyping grant has seen some stuff related to software development in the business to business space specifically. Or maybe your innovation is appropriate for investors as opposed to traditional make financing because you're looking at a high growth, high scale, and really looking at identifying that market potential. And then so for our traditional umbrella of small business kind of startups, so helping you figure out things like I mentioned earlier with just the guidance, financial projections, the business plans, and then as the business grows, looking at export assistance, valuing your business, selling the business. And so the next series that we'll do is about keeping a legacy alive. So you're buying a business. So what does that mean in terms of how you value that business and make that transition from one owner to the next? And there's 2 team members that do the succession planning and evaluation, and then one of them on our statewide organization. And so you want to just be knowledgeable what that means to buy a business and what you're paying for. So you can ultimately seek out financing to buy it. So there's a few folks across the state. So I'm part of our Grand Island Kearney offices, but we've got individuals east to west. So this is session number 2, starting from the ground up. The first one we did was called What Does It Take? So just general entrepreneurship. What is it like in the day-to-day and what to expect? And so Chase Meyer, he's got a couple of ventures. He's based in Kearney. And so he has 24-hour tees. It's a t-shirt print shop that promises you an order in 24 hours, and they're able to do some smaller projects. He also has a really, really fantastic co-working space called Nest that's in downtown Kearney. And then they're also standing up another kind of division of t-shirts called Doodle Tees, where there's this design on the shirt and you can kind of color it in, and the design and the colors are able to be set and you can wash it. And so it's really targeted at children, where they can use their creative outlet to have something they've drawn and create and then are able to wear. And so today we'll hear from Caleb Pollard with Scratchtown Brewing Company, and then we'll have another session or two more sessions to kind of continue this conversation surrounding entrepreneurship. So there's, I have learned as I got onto our innovation program that there's kind of two veins of startup, right? There's your traditional kind of Main Street. We're talking about maybe your retail shops, your service companies, manufacturing, and there's kind of the high growth startup that we might associate with Silicon Valley and some of those things, but that can happen here too. And we're really looking in Nebraska about how do we help support that innovation ecosystem. Spaces that we're really focusing on are kind of like agricultural technologies. You're seeing a lot of increase in that in terms of even precision ag, or there's Fitbits now for cows that they can wear. That was a bigger innovation coming out of Nebraska. And so scaling some of those things that are related to technology developments. So I wanted to kind of give you an idea of some other companies that we've worked with. And they said, I see a problem to solve, and here's how I decided to start a business. So Tally Creative in Grand Island started out as a photography studio. Julie at the time just did photography, and she said, there's nothing else in Grand Island. How do I, there's not a full service marketing agency. There's some in Hastings, but nothing in a town of 50,000. And so then she brought in some co-founders and that had skill sets in other areas like social media marketing, website design, content creation. And so they've made a full-fledged agency and are doing really well with that and providing a needed service within the community. This story, Innovative Prosthetics and Orthotics, stemmed out of really kind of a tragedy. So Rakesh Srivastava, that's on the right there, he is from India. And when he was 10, he, I think he was hit, I have to remember the exact details, hit by a car. And so he is obviously, as you can see, missing a good portion of his leg. And he said, I'm taking this challenge and I'm doing something about it. And I want to make prosthetics and orthotics accessible for other people. So he opened up a clinic at Hastings, and they now have have one in Grand Island and one in Omaha. But then he said, we need a way to create prosthetic and orthotic devices that are created quicker and are less expensive, right? If we're talking about children that are growing, they need new orthotics and prosthetics at much more frequent intervals than adults. And so what you can see here are things that they're using with the use of 3D printers to create these devices. And so he's really trying to change the trajectory of that industry. And he said, I see a problem, and our team here in Hastings can solve it. And from a kind of a high growth startup perspective, PharmaField, they're based in Lincoln. It started out as a spinoff of some work by a faculty member at the time from at UNL, and looking at ways to better connect folks looking to invest kind of in the ag space. So traditionally you had to have a lot of funds to be able to access things in the ag space to invest in, like cattle and ag areas. And so then now they're looking at doing it in an online way that's much simpler to access things and diversify your portfolio. So they've scaled that up, and they were able to do that through funding through the Small Business Innovation Research Program, a phase 1 and a phase 2, and they're now at the commercialization stage. So what's at the core of all of the startup types? So I'm curious, what's the answer? What do you think the answer is? Type it in the chat. What's at the core of all of this? Of those three I just told you. Oh man, I hope I like gave it to you a couple of times. Right? Saw a need and filled it. Anything else? right? So they all had a passion to create something and solve a problem. And so I want you to think about that as I talk to you about a few more things and what Caleb is saying, right? So the folks that I mentioned, they just had a passion to create something and solve a problem. And the big thing is understanding that you have a solution to a problem rather than a problem looking or solution looking for a problem. And then thinking about in all of this, what's the right fit for you? If you're starting something from scratch, are you starting a Main Street kind of a thing? Are you starting a high scale or high growth? Are you looking at buying a business, or are you a community leader that says, how can we better engage our young professionals or even our current owners in this conversation and making sure those businesses stay in our communities? All right, so before I go into that one, I want to know, so this is the point where you get to unmute. So I want you to tell me, why did you decide to join us today? Like what was your reason for being here?
I'll start.
Great, thanks, Jonathan.
Of course. Yeah, sorry, I'm eating lunch here, so I don't want you all to see me chewing. Well, first of all, I mean, in my role, Chamber Economic Development, work with entrepreneurs on a daily basis. And so I'm excited to continue to learn how I can best be a support system for them here in the community and the county. And also Caleb's awesome. So I just love hearing his story. And I feel like I get new nuggets every time we get to chat. And, you know, he's lighting the world on fire in rural Nebraska. And I think we need more of Caleb. If we can copy and paste him about 1,000 times, we could change the world. So.
I would agree. Some other folks, do you want to tell us why you're here and share kind of your insight? Oh, come on. We're all friends here.
Since no one else is jumping in, as Sarah said, I work with SourceLink. I'm part of NBDC, so I am part of that entrepreneur support system and here to support you all. I've been an entrepreneur in the past. I used to own a bookstore and coffee shop, and it was a fantastic experience. I just decided I didn't want to be tied down to a store all the time. So I need to find out a different type of job if I'm going to create my own business again in the future.
Thanks, Jamie. So Tara wants to learn where to start. Oh, it can be overwhelming. I would totally agree. And our team at NBDC, and there's several others that are kind of similar to what we do. Happy to help you navigate that because it can be a lot for sure. And the internet is a blessing and a curse at the same time, because you can do some Google searches and suddenly have so much information that it's just a lot to digest for sure. So
I would like to chime in if I could.
absolutely.
I had two reasons for joining today. First, I was born and raised in Ord, and Scratchtown is one of my favorite places when I get back there. But anyway, so I wanted to hear what Caleb said, because I know that the microbrewery has, you know, is going gangbusters and has grown, and I love to watch that. The other reason I'm joining in today is I work at the Nebraska Press Association. We're the trade association for all of the daily and weekly community newspapers in the state. And so I think, you know, I would like to, you know, make this organization more known to our statewide communities, because the community newspaper is vital in the communities where they are. And so I think there's some, you know, some information that you guys could provide to them and have some conversations that way as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you for sharing your insights, all of you. And we'll dive into a couple more things, because the best part I want to make sure we have ample time for is Caleb and his story. So if you want to boil it down, right, I just told you there's so much information, but SBA then brings it down into 10 steps, right? It's that easy. It's 10 steps. So in a simplified manner. Here's what it looks like. So conduct market research, make a business plan, fund the business. That's probably the hard one, the really hard one. Pick a business location. That might happen. That's interesting. They put that as number 4. You probably got to pick it before you get your money. But choose a business structure, choose the name, register your business, get tax IDs, apply for licenses and permits, and open a bank account. I would like to say there's more than that, but that's just a cursory overview for sure. There's many steps involved, but there's a lot of great people around the state that can help navigate those pieces. And SBA has a lot of great information on their website as well. So on a federal level, sba.gov. And I would like to think that we're creating good content on our website too. And I'll show you something here shortly with that. Hey, next slide actually did. So I did a project out in the Panhandle, talking with business owners in Western Nebraska about what's it like to own a business. And so what we have here are 10 to 12 minute videos, like diving into some of the nitty gritty and the questions that we'll pose to Caleb about what it takes. And then to supplement that, we've got the videos on our website and just some general kind of how-tos, and it's specific to their industries. So starting an ice creamery or a brewery, doing some online sales. Next Gen Outfitters are folks, they're founders that originally worked for Cabela's. And then when Bass Pro came in and purchased Cabela's, they were one of many that were left without jobs. And so they started up their own outfitter company, but they're focusing on online sales in addition to the retail storefront. But some great resources here. So you can just tap into that by going to nbdc.uinomaha.edu/journey. So hearing the stories of those folks was just incredible. And I loved being able to share what it's like for them. And more than just what you see when you go and visit them, and talking about the hard stuff too. So I encourage you to view those videos. We partnered with Sheep Creek Films. Curtis Howard owns that, and he is in Morrill, Nebraska. So he's almost to the Wyoming border, but he does phenomenal work for sure. So we were happy to work with him. Okay, so as you're thinking about these things, and I put a lot of questions on here for a purpose, right? So business plan questions, all the things that you'll think about as you write it. But the beauty of it is our team helps with that, doing the business plans, writing it, and helping you navigate all of these questions and understanding before you get started, what is that going to look like? And the importance of it is the bank's going to want it for sure. If I want a business plan, if you're seeking financing, but more importantly, it's good to just put it all on paper to know what's in my plan, what happens, if things change. Obviously, nobody predicted a pandemic, but there are other things that you might see as changes in your world or your community or your industry, and kind of planning for those in advance to be able to pivot as necessary when there are changes. So planning tips that I want you to think about: do your homework. Homework didn't end when we all graduated, right? It still exists on a day-to-day basis. And I want you to kind of think through those things and seek out resources for help. I can't emphasize that enough. There's a lot of really great people across the state that are happy to provide their insight, whether it's the resource providers or whether it is people like Caleb or others across the state who have very generously shared their insight and their time about what it means to start a business, and make sure it's the right venture for you. Right, Jamie, she was candid and said, I tried it. I realized that wasn't the right fit for me, and kind of evaluating those things in advance and what that means ultimately, understanding the market, and then mentor or work in a similar business if you haven't already done so. So you can really understand the strategic, but the day-to-day as well. And I dropped some kind of just, am I ready to start a business questions in there and things to think about, right? Are you doing a business or a hobby? Do you have family buy-in? If you have a spouse or children, that's for sure going to be part of what your world looks like. And so they have to be on board with you. What kind of other income will you have while you're getting things scaled up? You're not going to be making a whole lot of money on day one, for sure. So what are you using to support your lifestyle in the meantime? And then do I know how much time's involved? Do I need a lawyer, an accountant? What aspects do I need to work with them on? What can I bear myself or within my team? So things to think about as Caleb talks about his journey and as you consider things for yourself. So I'm now happy to formally introduce Caleb Pollard with Scratchtown Brewing Company. And Caleb, I will turn it to you. I will switch screens because I've got the webpage pulled up for Scratchtown if you want me to navigate to anything.
Thank you guys very much, Sarah. I appreciate the opportunity. You all are very kind, and I appreciate the kind words and enthusiasm for not only my business, but also maybe some of the information I can pass along that's helped me navigate the pandemic in the hospitality industry when, about 16 months ago, we were wondering if we were going to be able to make it through this as a business. And it's been a bit of a dynamic change as we've evolved as a company. I really do want to keep this kind of give and take. I would love to learn from those of you on this call. Being curious, I would say, and looking at the prep questions is one of the most important aspects for me as a business owner and as a human being, is being curious about the world, how it works, and then following that up with research, reading, and contemplation. And it's given me kind of a core competency to be, I guess, at this point in time, as we enter our 10th year of existence, we've kept the business open through all that we've gone through. But just a little bit of background with respect to me is I am not a native born son of Ord, but I do call it home. I have lived here longer in Ord now, which has been 13 years, longer than I've lived anywhere else across the Midwest. And Scratchtown was an idea that I started to ruminate on very seriously when I was 29 years of age. And by the time I was 31, I had put together my business ownership team, put together the financing. We'd selected a piece of real estate in downtown Ord to build our facility on, and we were really off to the races. And now I'm 41. I'll be 42 in December. So we've had a really long journey, and I've learned a lot about myself, my business partners, my community, and the world at large in a different way in which I got here when I started Scratchtown. I had been in both the private and the public sector before. I had worked in sales and marketing in the private sector before moving to Ord 13 years ago. And then I was also involved in economic development and Chamber of Commerce work, both at the State Department of Economic Development, the Ord Chamber of Commerce, and Ord Valley County Economic Development, and also at the Omaha Chamber of Commerce. So I had a rich background on building collaborative teams to accomplish big goals. And so I never have been afraid of taking big risks because of the experiences I had, in part because one of the most important aspects of my story is that when I was right out of college, just started a family, we had just had our first son. At 25, I was working for a .com that bombed. I ended up being out of work for almost a year. And in fact, I was on unemployment. And that was a very humbling experience that really focused the rest of what my hopes and dreams were for my career for the rest of my life. And so you'll see elements of that. I don't want to say it's like a YOLO attitude, but it certainly, there's some truth to it, is that premeditated, calculated risks are oftentimes worth taking. And so if there's anything that I can impart to you is, if you have a dream that's been in the back of your head for a long time and you can't stop thinking about it, that might be a message to yourself to take that risk and start your company. But a little bit more about it is I have 3 business partners. We have no investors in our company. We were self-financed along with financing the startup of our company with a local bank. And the first bank told us no. So one of the other traits I like to tell people that I do find myself sometimes being criticized for, rightly, is that I can be very relentless in the pursuit of my dreams and my endeavors. And sometimes that is a little much for most people. And so when someone tells me no, I typically, in the business setting, say, all right, we're going to find a workaround. We're going to make this happen. So the first bank said no. We went back to kind of our personal group of influence. I found a second banker that was willing to take a risk on us. And the rest essentially is history. And that banker has since retired from the industry, but I still consider him a mentor, a close personal friend, and he has been a benefactor to me personally on a number of what I call side hustle, side projects that I've invested in over the last 10 years. and he's been a very important part of my success. And so that's the, maybe the last bit of advice I can give you in starting up a company is to really think hard about your network and whom you can work with, especially if it's not a family member or a friend that believes in you and believes in your talent. We have been operating in downtown Ord, Nebraska since 2013. We formed the company in January of 2012. So our 10 years of creating the company is coming up. And then we've been operating 8 years, and we're getting ready to start our 9th year of operation. There are 3 full-time employees here at Scratchtown. I am one of them. I've been doing this full-time since before we started, and I have 5 employees that do work for us, both on the front and back of the house. And we had more employees pre-COVID, I'm afraid to admit, but I'm willing to talk about the trials and tribulations as being a business owner as well, because it's not always roses, rainbows, and unicorns. Sometimes it's incredibly stressful, and as a colleague told me a long time ago when we were going through the pandemic, he said, Caleb, the best captains aren't made in calm seas. So what you do now will dictate how well you survive, sometimes literally things like global pandemics or, global recessions. So with that in mind, I would be more than happy to entertain questions both from Sarah and from those on the Zoom call. But she does have our website pulled up, and one of the things that I think would be really valuable on that 10 steps is to add an 11th step, and that is, how do you build your professional services team that facilitates your business success? And what I would argue is that you cannot afford to not have that team when you start a business. It is, yes, that is a cost incurred, but it is going to be far less costly to build that team, and that team tell you do not have the wherewithal to start a company and then end up bankrupt in 2 to 3 years, which I've seen happen before. And that team, in my opinion, includes an attorney, it includes an accountant, and financial advisor. And finally, I call it mental or spiritual guidance, a mentor that can help you with big decisions as you go through the path of entrepreneurship and business ownership. Without those 3 people in my life, I would not be as successful, and my partners and I would not be as successful as we are. On our website, what you'll find is information about us. You'll find our updated beer menu that we rotate almost daily. We are an event-driven company. We do like to do a lot of events. In rural Nebraska, we found one of the challenges I found in living in rural Nebraska is that people complained often about nothing to do. And so when we started Scratchtown, we set out with this endeavor to have fun and make Ord awesome and give people an opportunity to have fun and be a bit event focused. And that has been something that has been a true joy for us since we've started it. And we do silly things from bingo night to Polka Fest to Beer Fest to mission driven philanthropy that is focused on things of importance to us within our community in our area. And I am a big believer that you can change the world, especially if you start in your own backyard. And sometimes that's the most effective means in which to transform our world, is to start right in your own backyard, literally, and build the scale with your business to be able to be a model and to be a means of influence, so that people wake up and say, hey, I can do this too, and be inspired by your mission, just as we were inspired by those that came before us. Lastly, in terms of advice, the one thing that I will emphasize greatly is one of the most important things that you can do as a business owner is set boundaries, and then be relentless in protecting those boundaries. Because one of the things that we found since we founded Scratchtown is that there are, I call them time and money vampires, that will continue to take your time and your money away from you as a business. And sometimes that means taking you away from what your core competencies are, what your core focus are, and especially what your mission is if you are mission driven like we are. And I can talk about those 5 components of what really are, rather than like a mission, vision, value statement. We have 5 key areas of what I call value structure that influence every business decision that we make. The first one is that we must maintain the brand of Scratchtown Brewing Company. The second one is that we maintain and we service the family of Scratchtown. We are a family-owned business, and we will continue to be that for as long as I'm involved. The third is that we are focused on the bottom line of the business, and that is making sure that we are good financial stewards for the business, not for us individuals. And not often do we maximize owner benefit because it may not be good for being for our business's existence. And then our fourth one is that our fourth one is that we're community focused. So a lot of the decisions that we make are through the lens of how do we make our community better by what we do. I've found now that through what was a major inflection point for my industry, the hospitality industry in 2020, when the pandemic broke, is that if you aren't community driven, if you aren't community focused, you have no one to support you in times of peril. And that was one of the most incredible experiences we had over the last 18 months, is how much our community rallied around us to ensure that we had business to get through what was a very dark time for us. And the last thing that's really important for us is that we are good stewards of the earth in which we occupy and we inhabit. So one of the things that we did to reduce our carbon footprint and to also increase our or decrease our financial overhead, our operating overhead, and increase our value as a company is we put a major solar array on the entire rooftop of our building. And that generates 85, sometimes 90% of our annual power needs. So that was a huge, huge operational cost that we were able to really essentially remove from our profit and loss statement because of just grabbing energy from the sun and making beer with caloric energy from the sun. It's a lot of fun. So with that in mind, that's a little bit about us. I am active on LinkedIn. I'm not active on really any other social media sites anymore, but you can contact me through the website that Sarah has pulled up, and I'm more than welcome to, or more than happy to take questions and feedback from folks that if you have them.
All right, Caleb, we're going to start with some initial questions. We'll get some warm up going, and then we've got moderated questions will pop up through a poll that you as attendees get to vote on. But again, if there's things that you're like, I got this question, I want to make sure we tackle it, drop it in the chat for sure. So I'm going to start with a super simple question, Caleb. What's your favorite brew at Scratchtown and why? It's an important one.
We don't do this very often, but every once in a while we do barrel-aged beers, similar to how winemakers barrel-age different varieties of wine that they vent. And we put in one of our favorite, Mike is one of my business partners. He's our head brewer, and he and I love Belgian Tripels. And it's a Belgian style beer that's fermented without any temperature control. So they can go really well, they can go really poorly, and we end up dumping that product because of that volatile fermentation situation. We had a really good batch of our Belgian triple called Silver Tongue Devil. That is what my nickname is around town, is the Silver Tongue Devil. It's one that I earned probably honestly. But we stuck that in a wine barrel for about 2 years and let it mature. And when we broke that beer out, it was probably as close to perfect of a beer that we ever made. And because that beer is volatile during fermentation and you don't know what you get from barrel aging certain beers, sometimes you get what we call drain pours, and sometimes you get these unicorns that are like impossible to make again. It's almost like a vintage when it comes to a wine. And so that beer was super magical, and it was available only once, and it is gone, and that will probably be the unicorn we chase the rest of our lives. But right now, what I'm drinking regularly in our tap room is a German Pilsner that we make called Closer to the Sun. It is a connection to our solar array that we have on top of our brewery, and that is the one that I'm deferring to when it's on tap regularly.
Excellent. Okay, so talk a little bit about what was it like, or when did the leap from employee to entrepreneur seem right for you?
About 18 months after we were operating. So it took us 10 months to get the business founded and literally built. We built it from scratch, pun intended. And then about 18 months into operating, I was able to start paying myself a salary. So I went, and I'm just going to be honest with y'all, my prior salary was $60,000 in a white collar executive position. I went to $0 for 18 months. And that was a huge, huge point of stress for my wife and I, had we not gone through what we had gone through when I was 25 when I lost my job. So we had built a family budget that was predicated as best we could on one salary or one income from my wife or I. And that leap started to make sense 18 months in, because I got paid, because we felt comfortable to be able to take that income out of the business and still be able to maintain our overhead and pay the bills and keep things operating. And that's when I said, okay, this might work. And then it took about 5 years in to feel really competent in what we were doing and how we were operating. But ultimately, like, I have a serious case of imposter syndrome. Like, I'm sure a lot of you probably do as well. It's like, I'm totally winging it. Like, I think most adults do. And sometimes I feel like I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing 10 years into this thing. But that, I think if you have, again, going back to that value base and those core competencies, if you stay founded and focused on your core competencies, what makes you good, and build the team that fills in where your weak points are, you can overcome a lot of really challenging situations. And one, that has been challenging for us is the last 18 months.
So you got to one of the questions I had about asking yourself if it would financially work. Did you want to add anything to that in terms of what your team decided for what financially work? Business and getting it open.
Yeah. So one of the things that's unique to us, that is unique to people probably my age, I'm 41, like I said, is we went through 2 recessions in our young adult careers. And so I basically, because of the Great Recession of 2008 and 9, I had essentially financially had to start over. We had moved out here to Ord. It took me 2 years to get my house sold in Lincoln. We lost a bunch of money on that. My 401k was about half of what it was when I moved here by the time 2010 rolled around. And I was frankly rather fed up with the traditional American success story of, you go to college, you get married, you start a family, you start a career, you buy a house, yada, yada, yada. Because all of the things that I had done didn't seem like it was necessarily financially panning out. And I felt like if I took an investment and a risk in investing in myself and my partners, it would reduce that nagging voice in the back of my head that said that you wanted to do this, you want to do this, you want to do this, you want to do this. And that nagging regret would not go away the longer that I made the decision to start the company with my partners. And so we took kind of an opposite of look at that question, and we said, what do we have to lose? Mike and I had already gone through 2 layoffs. We had already lost financially a significant amount of money by no fault of our own, other than just the circumstances of the market. And we were fed up with the way that you should do things. And frankly, to solve one problem is I did not want to do economic development anymore, but I wanted to stay in Ord. I really love this area, and I love this community, and I love this part of the country. And it was a way in which to solve that problem, to be able to stay here and to seek gainful employment while being transformative. One of the things that we like to say is that we are transformative, and we promote positive transformation through fermentation. And that we try to incorporate in what we do as a company by being purpose driven. So to us, the financial aspect of it was secondary to that mission driven attitude about doing something of value in the private sector and in a free market economy.
Okay. So I think you've touched on a little bit, but are there any other kind of key elements to creating, a strong team of co-founders, or even your strong team of employees and things like that? I know running a great team is important to you.
Yeah. So if you don't like to network, find somebody to do business with that does. I love networking. And that's one of the things that I can't emphasize enough in terms of promotion of your business or meeting good people that can help you out, is that almost every single person that is in our circle of influence or that works for us or owns the business here was all happenstance through networking purely. And what I was looking for were people that prioritized open communication, open honesty, trust. They had discipline in their personal lives, and they had a worldview that was similar to my own. And I don't mean political or religious or something down those lines that can be often divisive, but I mean in terms of general, what do you want to do with this time that you have on this planet, and how do you want to leave it for the generations to come? And every single person, I feel like, especially within our ownership circle, has those 5 like key things in spades. Is they're willing to openly communicate. They're completely honest with their motivations and their motives and their feelings. There has been tremendous amounts of trust. There's discipline to come in and operate every day. That's one of the things that's like, I think, hardest for people, is that when you're an entrepreneur, you have to be disciplined in operation. You have to get up and go to work every single day. You have to put that time in. You have to put that work in. And you come to find out after 5 to 6 years that it's actually really enjoyable. That routine is a lot of fun. And that is actually what is core to being successful. And of course, going back to that worldview thing, talking about being mission driven. I can get along with anybody, regardless of where we have disagreement, especially within partnerships. You're going to have disagreement. But if you have those 5 things in spades, it's easy to get, I shouldn't say easy, but it's easier to get through those disagreements or those times when things are tense, because they will be when you're a business owner.
And I think that's really true, right? You know, when you see friends go into business together, it can, you see friendships fall apart because they didn't create that strong foundation of what are the values we have as a team, and how are we going to make those decisions based on those values. So I think that's critically important for sure.
You're right. Absolutely.
So I'm going to turn to, we've got some questions in the chat. Amanda said, you mentioned solar panels. Are there any other tech tools that change the game for Scratchtown, like sensor systems or social media data? And is beer tech a thing? I don't know if it is. I mean, I've got the app for Untapped, but I don't know if beer tech is a thing. That's a great question, Amanda.
Yes. So one is, there are 2 things that are related. One is that I'm a big believer in what I call boutique manufacturing. Is I think that now today, because of technological advancements, because of social media, because of miniaturization of manufacturing processes, you can be a small scale boutique manufacturer. You may not be globally known, but you may be the best operator in your space and in your geographic region. And the transformative pieces that have been helpful for us are in packaging. So for example, we, over the last 3 years, have essentially gone away from all glass-based packaging and gone straight into 12-ounce and 32-ounce canning operations for retail operations. And that's been transformative for our business, especially during the pandemic. It was a godsend for us, and we were able to in a very savvy way, operate through the pandemic and still generate the income that we needed to keep our doors open. And one of the things that was really important to me, besides that, is then also using social media to tell your story. Is I believe really strongly that you can be a remarkable business in rural Nebraska and have global reach if you are authentic and you tell the story, because people want to hear what you have to say. And that is coupled with providing, I think, our customer base with a superior product, is that we're not afraid to enter into international competitions in our industry space. And we've been really successful in beating a lot of major regional craft brewers from across the country in these competitions. And that's brought a lot of pride to the table that that we can use social media to essentially market our business. And it gives us an opportunity to differentiate ourselves from other craft brewers, because we're one of the most awarded and recognized small craft brewers in the Midwest now. And so when you piece those things together, it gives you an ability to operate in a space that gets you through things like I said, with the pandemic.
So related to some of that, and with your cans, I know you sell stuff obviously there out of the tap room, but Jamie wanted to know if you had talked to Taver. I don't know what that one is. That's new to me. Or other beer geek apps and websites to market bottled or canned beer to markets outside of your area. Do you do distribution?
Yes, we're statewide. Most of what we do is draft, and it's out the door from Scottsbluff to Omaha. And we do that. The tricky thing is with our industry is that when you sell that beer to the distributor, oftentimes you have no idea where it goes, which is problematic in my opinion. And that is a problem within our industry that needs to be solved. And the other flip side of it is when we do know where that goes, we work very closely with those retailers to promote that. However, the tricky thing is we're regulated by the Liquor Control Commission. And one of the things that they don't like, and they're starting to crack down on, is is essentially value added between the manufacturer and the retailer. It's basically bureaucrat speak to say that we can't do some of the things that we used to do because they don't find it, what's the word I'm looking for, legal within our space. So we're finding that we're having to adjust some of our marketing issues if some of these changes take place, because like sometimes what we're hearing right now, it's really troubling, is that we won't be able to advertise what businesses carry our product because we're giving them value that has monetary value, but we're doing it for free. And it's really ridiculous. I mean, it to me shows how out of touch and out of step the regulatory bodies can be when it comes to innovation within the market space. And so oftentimes the regulators are 10 years behind where the market is. And so that's been really interesting to navigate.
And I pulled up the link that Jamie shared in the chat there, and it says, fill your fridge with unique craft beers you can't find locally. So that's interesting. I wonder how they circumvent some of those distribution regulations then, or
yeah, well,
I'll
speak directly to that. One of the things that we were doing during the pandemic was like home delivery, like the milkman of beer to people's doorstep. And our goal is, once we get staffed back to where we feel comfortable doing this, is building out what I call like a community supported agriculture model for beer and beer delivery. And it would be a subscription based delivery service that we would provide to our customers. And we're kind of hashing that out right now. And that would not have been possible without the packaging innovations and the technological innovations through, online media and marketing.
Indeed. Rhonda, I might have you wait. I think I can pull up the polls now that I think about it. We've had some great questions, and so we may not need this, but I'm going to launch a poll just so you can interact with it. So click on it, see which one you like best, and then we'll have Caleb answer one of those. And if we've addressed some of these, we can totally bypass this one and hop to the next.
I had to vote on it, by the way. So
okay. All righty. So everybody wants to know, what's the best advice you ever received?
The best advice that I've ever received was from a mentor and another operator in a different business space than us. But he said to me, be wary of any advice unsolicited from those that haven't walked in your shoes. And so when other business owners have asked me for advice, one of the things that I've always said, rather than tell them what I think they should do, I try to find experiences that are similar to the challenge or problem that they're facing, that we've addressed and that we've walked through, and then explain to them the process in which that we helped, or that we looked at to get through that challenge or that obstacle that was needed to be overcome for us to be successful. And so one of the things that I am very, very cautious about is listening to the unsolicited advice of people that haven't walked a mile in our shoes and don't understand some of the decisions that are necessary to being a business owner. And I laugh because it's oftentimes it's stated out of love and like genuine respect and deference to you as an individual, but it always starts off with what you ought to do. If I had a list for what I ought to have done as a business owner in the last 10 years, a nickel for every time I've heard that, I'd probably be a rich man. But the reality is I fully want to emphasize is to be very careful and listening to advice from those that have not walked a mile in your shoes.
Indeed, because experience is the best teacher. And if you can learn from experience of others, I think that's important. All right, I'm going to launch our next one. Okay, so what do you recommend for maximizing time management with business and family life?
If I had a good answer, I would tell you it's one of the biggest challenges of being an owner operator and an entrepreneur is that I am constantly faced with decisions that oftentimes are at a perpendicular angle to quality time with my family. And it's especially like relative to right now, because I have a senior in high school that is in his last year of high school and wants to go to college far away from here. So that inflection point is upon me right now. And I think it goes back to what I said with one of the hardest decisions when we were starting and developing our company is still true today, which is setting boundaries. Is that I say no a lot to things. We get over 150 requests a year to do events all over the state, and we probably do maybe a dozen max. And the reason why is because it oftentimes doesn't pencil out, not just with the money side of it, but also more importantly with time. I'm a firm believer that money is a renewable resource, but time is not. Time is the one unrenewable resource you have as a business owner, and you don't get it back. And if you do not protect that time, like most people protect their money, you're in for a rude awakening. And I really detest the saying when people say they're busy. Like it's a badge of honor. Being busy is gross. Being busy is not something that you should wear as a badge of honor. I want to see people be productive, and I want to see people do things of value that produce better outcomes, not being busy. I mean, I listen to people talk. If I had the attitude that I was busy, I would be miserable. My life is full. My cuppeth runneth over. But at the end of the day, what is important to me is to set boundaries, which I was not good at when we started, and saying no, because not every opportunity is a good one.
Well, we're glad you said yes to this one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And these are the types of things I love to do. I mean, I love sharing our story, and I love talking to people because I'm here to learn from you guys as well.
Well, we've got a minute left. I wish I could keep you all afternoon, but I think they all have work to do yet too. This is much more fun than what I have scheduled for the rest of my day. But I want to thank you, Caleb, and I'm going to bring up kind of some of our tools for folks as you're looking at, what does this look like for you or for your communities and things. Give me just a sec here.
And while Sarah pulls that up, I just want to remind everybody, CYN is giving an opportunity to visit Scratchtown, as we will be hosting the CYN Summit in Ord this fall. And we will be planning an event the night before the summit, and that will include Scratchtown. So stay tuned as we are getting very close to announcing more details about the summit.
I'm looking forward to it indeed. So next session is on August 25th, Keeping a Legacy Alive, focusing there on what it means to buy an existing business. Maybe you're like, you know what, I don't want to create things from scratch, but there are a tremendous number of businesses in the state of Nebraska that somebody's looking at retiring, but the business is vital to the community, and how can you then step in and keep that legacy alive? And then the fourth session will be on September 8th. Where do I go from here, and kind of next steps and planning for you. So we've also created some tools with each of these sessions. So kind of how to start a business checklist, and then with that, an action planner. So helps you take those steps to plan it out and make it less overwhelming, and say, okay, here's what I'm going to do next. And here's my self-imposed deadline. What are the resources I need to get this done? And what kind of challenges do I think are going to present themselves, right? If you're like, you know what? I am not good at creative content. Well, how are you going to bring a person in to help you with that? Or I'm not good at the financial part of it. Where are you going to fill those gaps? And so we have those tools, and I'm going to drop the link for, oh gosh, maybe I made it go away in our Google Drive here. Rhonda, was it in the
It was sent in a previous email, and I can make sure to include it in a future upcoming email, as well as with a link to the YouTube video.
I will actually put it in. I found it really quick, so I will put it right here. So this is where we've got everything, and we realized that this is not a webinar format, so we don't have all of your emails. You just get to drop in, and so then we couldn't send stuff to you in the last session. So that Google Drive folder, you'll be able to access session 1, the what does it take kind of self-assessment tool. Do I have kind of the mental wherewithal, and ability, mindset, all of that really to take that step. And session 2, what we've got here is that how to start a business checklist and that companion action planner. And so there'll be some tools with each session. So hopefully this gives you a nice flavor of content, the storytelling piece from somebody going through it, and then some action tools to go forward with. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today, for allowing me this opportunity to share the great work of companies around the state. And thank you to Caleb for your candor and your honesty about what it's like, and helping people navigate this, whether it's the folks we're talking to here or those that you talk with on a daily basis.
Thank you for the opportunity, Sarah. And Rhonda, I'm looking forward to seeing everybody at the Connecting Young Nebraskans Summit here in Ord in October. We have a really dynamic community here with a lot of really dynamic young leaders. And I'm kind of the old guy now in town comparative to the last 10 years of demographic change. So again, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and the kind words as well. It means a lot to us.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you, Caleb, and hope to see you all again in 2 weeks. Have a great Wednesday. Bye. Thank you, Sarah. I've got to run off to another meeting, so I'm going to close.
All right, sounds great. Thanks.
Bye.